So I needed to get a new camera. I've been using the Sony ZV-E10 and a GoPro Hero 11 Black to shoot these YouTube videos for somewhere near 2 years now. Not continuously because I took over a year off in between, but almost all the videos that you've seen on my channel have been filmed with a combination of these two cameras. Now, there's nothing wrong with the ZV-E10. It's a great little camera and I'm going to continue using it for a long time going forward. Likewise with the GoPro. But this setup has had some limitations. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I've been trying to use these cameras, where they've been great and where they've fallen short, and how I came to the decision on what camera I should buy, which you obviously know is the Sony A6700 because it's in the title of the video. And you obviously also know that I think it's a beast because that's also in the title. But I'll go into a bit more detail about why on both fronts, and maybe that will help you if you're weighing up the decision on what camera to buy. I'm going to break this down into a few sections. First, my thoughts on the Sony ZV-E10. Second, my thoughts on the GoPro Hero 11. And third, why I chose the Sony A6700 as opposed to any other camera that is available. So make sure you stick around to the end to hear my thoughts on the A6700. Very quickly, though, I want to say a massive thank you to all of you that have subscribed and are watching the channel. YouTube recently accepted me into the YouTube Partner Program, and I couldn't have done it without all of you. So a massive thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart to all of you. What that does mean is that I'm now able to offer channel memberships and super thanks. So if you want to buy me a beer, you can. And if you aren't subscribed and like the content, consider subscribing and you get to see more of, well, me. Right, enough of that. Sony ZV-E10. The intention of buying the Sony ZV-E10 was threefold. First, to have a dedicated camera for filming YouTube videos instead of using my iPhone. Second, to have a decent photography camera to carry with me almost everywhere to take better pictures of my family. And in 2023, when I bought it, to facilitate me getting rid of my iPhone 14 Pro that I had at the time to get an iPhone 13 mini. I wanted a smaller phone, but I knew I would be sacrificing camera to do that, and so having a dedicated camera with me would bridge that gap. And third was to use the camera to learn how to become a better photographer and videographer. From a YouTube camera perspective, it's done really well. Well, I think it has anyway, but I guess you will be a better judge of that and how my videos look for me. Let me know in the comments. But as I've started to understand video editing better, I've come to notice that there are some features that have been lacking on this camera. Number one, firstly, is the ability to use certain picture profiles on the camera for better dynamic range and allow color grading while editing the videos. The Sony ZV-E10 can only record at a maximum of 8-bit color, and what that means is that the amount of color information that is recorded by the camera isn't sufficient to play around with the colors much while editing. The footage literally kind of falls apart and becomes unusable. You can see it in one of my videos here. The other place where it has fallen a bit short is for using it for photography. There's a distinct lack of dials on the camera, meaning that when I'm trying to use manual mode, I invariably miss the photo that I wanted to take because I've been too busy fighting with the buttons and menus on the camera to get the setting that I want for the photo I want to take, especially when it comes to photographing my kids. They've literally moved on and gone on to the next thing by the time I'm ready. The other thing that is missing is a viewfinder. Instead, you have to solely rely on the screen. And it makes sense that there isn't one on the ZV-E10 as it's a video first camera, but in really bright sunlight, an EVF for photography is a godsend. And being a bit old now, I'm actually quite used to using a viewfinder, as when I started taking pictures, there were no screens on the back of cameras. Actually, there were no digital cameras at all. It was all film. Now, the GoPro Hero 11. I've been trying to use the GoPro for a couple of things. First is as is intended, as an action cam. When I'm out with my daughter riding bikes or on holiday, messing about with the kids in the pool, it's been great for those types of things. I've gotten some amazing memories captured on this thing because it's light, rugged, and waterproof. The video stabilization is like magic, and as long as you've got decent lighting, the video comes out great. Where it hasn't been so good is when using it as a secondary camera for these YouTube videos, specifically as an overhead camera. I like to shoot my videos as multicam videos as it significantly speeds up the editing process, which means that the GoPro has to be fairly high above my desk to make sure that it's out of view of the main camera. Because the field of view on the GoPro is so wide and there is no lens-based zoom, I find myself having to crop into the 5.3K video that it shoots, leading to a real degradation in quality, especially when compared to what was my main camera, the Sony ZV-E10. And finally, the GoPro has an annoying trait of clipping a long video into smaller videos of 10 to 12 minutes. When trying to edit using a multicam workflow, this presents challenges in joining the main and overhead angle into one multicam clip. It's a bit of a mouthful. There were a few decisions and factors that went into the choice of getting the Sony A6700. The first decision was deciding whether to go full frame or APS-C sensor. I'm not going to go into the technical details of full frame versus APS-C because that's far too technical for me and I will likely butcher part of it anyway, but for me it boiled down to a few simple factors. First was low light performance. Full frame cameras' sensors are larger and so generally have better pictures or video when in low light. Full frame cameras also tend to be higher spec than APS-C, higher frames per second, better at higher ISO, higher megapixel count, etc., as they tend to be more professionally used. That can be a double-edged sword, as you can have all the features, but if, like me, you're still learning how to use them all, it can be a bit daunting. But full-frame cameras also tend to be much larger than APS-C cameras. There are some outliers, like the Sony A7C range, but as a general rule of thumb, full-frame cameras are bigger. With me wanting a camera that I wouldn't have a problem taking literally everywhere with me, this was a huge deciding factor. After all, the best camera is the one that you have with you, right? And if I'd bought the Sony A7R5 and left it at home most of the time, well, then what was the point? The other factor against going full frame is the cost. Even comparing two similarly sized cameras, the Sony A6700, which is APS-C, and the Sony A7C2, which is full frame, and likely the camera I would have gotten if I'd gone full frame, they don't have a huge size difference between them, but the Sony A7C2 is around £800 more expensive for the camera body alone. And there are actually some things that the A6700 actually does better than the A7C2. The other cost factor is the lenses. One of the most expensive Sony APS-C lenses is the Sony 16-55 f2.8G, which is roughly 24 to 82.5 millimeters in full frame equivalent because of the APS-C crop factor. That lens is around the £1,000 mark in the UK, still very expensive. Now, a close approximation in full frame would be the Sony 24-70 f2.8 GM, which costs a staggering £1,900. And don't even get me started on long lenses. Telephoto lenses can cost thousands for full frame. Full frame lenses, especially zoom lenses, tend to be much larger than their APS-C counterparts again, making the overall camera significantly larger. Now, no doubt, these full frame lenses are technically better than their APS-C equivalents, if there is even an APS-C equivalent available, but unless you're blowing the image up to 300% and pixel peeping, or a professional that needs a ridiculously fast camera to capture a cheetah running at full speed, I mean, maybe I'm selling myself on APS-C, but I don't think there's going to be a massive step change in image quality at the sizes that most people are viewing, and if they still are printing their photos. For me, especially, who is using the camera for YouTube videos primarily and documenting my life with my family, going full frame seemed overkill and actually brings some negatives on size and cost. So I decided to go APS-C, but if the A67 hadn't been introduced a couple of years ago, the decision would probably have been to go full frame. So why the A6700? The primary, most important thing that this camera needed to be able to do was help level up my videography above all else. It needed to be able to shoot in 4K, preferably at 60 frames per second, and have 10-bit 422 color depth to give me the most flexibility in editing as my editing skills very, very slowly get better. It needed to have a viewfinder for those bright situations when it's difficult to compose pictures due to bright sunlight, and it needed to remain compact for everyday carry. The Sony A67 covers all of these and even more. The APS-C sensor inside is the same used on the Sony FX30, which is a cinema line APS-C camera and well loved for making movies. It has 4K 60 frames per second recording without cropping into the image. The full frame Sony A7C2 crops in about 1.5 times if you want to use 4K 60 FPS, and giving the A67 actually an advantage over its closest sized full frame equivalent. It can even do something that the Sony A7C2 can't do at all, and that's 4K 120 frames per second, albeit with a 1.5 times crop. The A67 does start overheating with extended recording time if you are using 4K 120 frames per second, but if you are recording 10 to 15 minute clips, it's generally fine, and that can be easily extended by using a simple fan. At least it has the functionality because it's missing from a lot of full frame models. So that's a check on great for movies. There is also an electronic viewfinder. It's not the highest resolution one you'll find, but it's there nonetheless and has come in handy already when I've been using the camera over the last month in the desert of the United Kingdom. Seriously, it's been hitting 30 degrees here, which is horrible for our heavily insulated homes as they are not made for that. So check on that front too. And this camera, if you slap on a pancake lens, can easily fit into a pocket. It's not going to fit into skinny jeans or, to be fair, any jeans, but it will happily fit into a jacket pocket or a mini 2-litre sling, so check on the compact front too. On top of all of that, it's got actual in-body image stabilization, IBIS, to help out with camera shake. They've redesigned the grip to be much more like a full-frame camera, so it's extremely comfortable to hold. Even though it's bigger and heavier than my Sony ZV-E10, it's much more comfortable to use because of this. There is also now a bigger battery from the Sony A7 range, meaning that you can be out most of the day taking pictures and not run out of charge. There's AI autofocus, meaning that it's able to recognize focus and on and track things like humans, pets, cars, planes. There's probably more, but I can't remember them off the top of my head now. And so, to conclude, the reason I think this is a beast, because it feels like Sony took some of the best parts of their camera ecosystem overall, stuck them into a blender, and spat this out. It has the benefits of being compact from the A6000 series. It has a great APS-C video sensor that comes from the FX30 cinema line, which gives it 4K 60 frames per second with no crop. I mean, the Sony A7 IV and the Sony A7C2 full-frame cameras can't even do that. It's got their AI autofocus system that comes from their high-end A7R5 photography camera. It's just such a great camera that's packed to the gills with tech and features that will help improve my videos and photos. So, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash the like button and consider subscribing to see more of me. Go on, do it. There will be links to all my gear in the description. If you want to buy something for yourself, consider using the links, as that will give me a small commission and help support the channel. You can also buy me a one-off beer or a regular beer by using the supers or channel membership if you'd like to support the channel that way. Again, thanks for all your support and hope you have a great day.